Hey, Megan.
Hey, Michelle.
Welcome to Sisters.
Sisters.
There were never such devoted sisters. Oh, I'm so glad you're with me this week.
I'm so glad to be here, too. I just love being with you. It's fun.
It's always fun. We always have something to talk about.
It's weird. We do.
Yeah, I know. Some people would say, stop. But we won't.
But we just said, let's make a podcast.
Well, great. So let's get started today.
Love it. Let's do it.
Get into it.
Get into it.
So we're going to, on this podcast, dig into Rosey's brain.
Yeah.
Are you a willing participant?
I think so. I mean, I've named it Rosey's brain, so I must have some say in it, right?
Absolutely, you do. And what I want to talk about today is a little bit about what it means to be neurodivergent, what it means for you, also how you've been described by others. I also want to talk about how it's affected you, both physically and emotionally, a little bit. We won't get super deep, but I want to make sure that we can discuss that a bit.
Yeah.
And then how you've learned to cope with it, some of the strategies you've learned over the years. And then I know you really want to build a community of support around this, and so we want to discuss that as well. So our podcasts really are going to be a combination of stories along with digging into your brain.
Okay.
Meaning from your perspective, how do you see the world? Because that's been endlessly fascinating to me ever since you were born, honestly.
Yeah.
And then we want to talk about kind of how we cope with some of those things that we're discussing. So I think that's kind of the big picture of the podcast. So today, though, I want us to start with a story because I'll usually have us start with a memory or a story. And so I was talking with our mother before getting here today to have this podcast, and she described your beautiful brain in a variety of ways.
Oh, no, I'm scared.
No, good. All good. But I think she said, you know, and I think you might agree to this, that you have this endless creativity.
That is true.
And sometimes with it comes endless chaoticness.
True.
True as well.
Well, okay. I mean, okay, yes, chaos. Others might see it as chaos.
Yeah.
It all makes perfect sense to me.
Okay, so this is why your brain is fascinating to me, because you do have a reason for everything.
I absolutely do.
So here's what I want to know more. I want the story. You had a tremendous amount of stickers growing up. You love stickers.
Oh my gosh.
And so our mother remembers vividly. I don't think a lot from when we were kids. I mean, I'm not saying she doesn't remember anything, but you know, it's a haze with 3 kids, right? So, but she remembers very much in detail your sticker book and stickers being placed perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, what was that about for you? Can you first of all, can you describe your sticker book to us, or sticker books?
Well, I had multiple.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yes.
I think it first started off with like a Lisa Frank sticker book.
Super colorful.
Oh, yeah. And it was like a cat on the front.
Oh.
And it says my stickers or my sticker books. It was very literal. And they were like these glossy pages that you could put your stickers on. And I'm assuming, I don't know why, maybe they were glossy in case like you wanted to, like you missed stuff. I don't know.
She remembers you taking them on and putting them back on again and again.
Oh, so I was right.
Yeah.
So that memory is correct. Okay.
Yes, it is correct.
Yeah. So I think when I first started stickers, I don't know. I mean, it was just sort of like, just put them wherever.
Right.
I know they can't see what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. You're just plopping your hands all over the air. Like they're everywhere.
Just stick them. They're stickers. Oh my God. But I was so fascinated with like all of the colors and the shapes and the different, like there was some that were scented at the time.
How old were you, do you think?
Oh, I was really young. I mean, I think I started young.
Started with your sticker habit young.
My sticker habit started really young. Yeah, I think I was like, I mean, I don't know. I was 3 or 4. But like, I just remember like staring at these stickers for like hours because I was just fascinated with all of, like, you know, the different colors and the shading and the just everything. I don't know what it was, but I was just mesmerized.
And when you're looking at it, are you looking at like every pixel? Are you looking at shapes? Are you looking at color? What do you see when you're looking at these stickers that you could look at it that long?
I mean, I guess I was cataloging them sort of in a weird way. So like I might look at, I don't know, in my head right now, I've got this, sticker that is, it's got like a holographic kind of thing on it. And so I would just stare at it and try to see like, okay, so it's changing colors and then it's morphing rainbow, like it turns red over here, but if I look this direction, it turns green and blue, and then also like, how does the holographic section connect with like a non-holographic section? And how like my eye might be able to, I could see my eye in the holographic part, but then I can't see it in the non-holographic part. And I just was endlessly fascinated with stuff like that, where I just couldn't stop looking at it. I mean, I would look at like the shapes and say, okay, well, if there's like a couple of triangles, like, well, did those triangles make a different shape in my mind that's not that sticker? And, just trying to figure out like, how could it look? It's kind of hard to explain.
No, but I think that's the whole point of this podcast, is that it is hard to explain, and that we want to try to little by little start to understand, when you see somebody staring at something for endless hours, maybe you might have an assumption about them, or you might think that they're kind of zoning out. And in fact, your brain was working overtime, it sounds like.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'd be staring at it and, oh yeah, I would have every thought in my head. I mean, I was also making stories about them. So, there was like a whole series of Betty Boop stickers.
I remember those.
And she was like in different poses in different places. And so like I would sort of imagine her leaping out of the page and like going around and talking to the other stickers, or like, I was creating a whole story in my head of like, okay, she's coming and hanging out with like the Lisa Frank's dog, and that's her little dog over there. And then, okay, this little like bear sticker that I got, like, oh yeah, and they're buddies. And like, I would have a whole
entire story,
entire
in your head.
World. Yeah.
So when we're looking at a plain like 2-dimensional sticker book, and you're looking at a whole world.
Yeah.
In your mind.
Yeah.
And so where those stickers were placed and where they went mattered based on either story or cataloging in some way, maybe?
Definitely cataloging. In the beginning, it was like very random, just everywhere, kind of, and you can kind of see as the hard things started coming in, and my social life wasn't as great and school wasn't as great, you can start seeing that I start controlling the stickers. And so I go into like every single note. I had all these like notes when I started, doing music. And so I got a bunch of these really cool kind of holographic-y looking notes. And I had them all lined up in a row.
So the music notes themselves, even though they were stickers, you made them line up.
They all were like a row. Or I had like all of the teddy bears, like they were all in a row. And I just, everything had to be very meticulous at that point, because it was like the only thing I could control.
Got it. Okay, so that brings me to going kind of into what it means to you to be neurodivergent, because a lot of what you needed to control, as I remember it anyway, was because you kind of were in this school system and in a world that really needed you not to be telling stories in your head all day.
Yeah.
Right? Which is what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Right? That's where you naturally went at 4 and 3. But as you get older, now you're trying to be in this world and brought into this world that needs you to be a little different.
Oh, yeah. So not a little different. Like it needed everything that I was needed to be other.
Yeah. I would think in a way you wouldn't say neurodivergent. You would say me.
Yeah. I didn't know that term until recently.
Well, and it's kind of recent. I mean, it's like in the 90s, I think, that they came up with it. And so I think, but there's been all these classifications of what it means to be neurodivergent. I liked the term because I think it gave some freedom to the fact that it wasn't wrong. It was just, going a different direction potentially, or,
divergent, like it diverges from what is I guess your brain is diverging.
I guess.
Is that what neurodivergent?
But I think it still kind of brings us to this point of, it's not normal.
Yeah.
Right. Which is such a dirty word in a weird way, you know, but I think this idea that you weren't normal, that our brains work very differently and everyone's brain works differently. But I think some people's brains fit into the box more easily than others.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there is, I always wonder, like, what does normal look like? That's not me. And that's not, it's like, it's a different skill set, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. So what you've been categorized, I mean, yes, obviously different skill set, but what you've been categorized as by professionals is what?
ADHD.
Okay. Which is attention deficit
hyperactivity disorder.
Right.
Which
women couldn't even have it.
Up until recently. Yeah. I mean, that's the crazy part, is that like there was a female psychiatrist here in town who actually diagnosed me with ADHD, which is actually pretty astounding, because like up until a couple of years ago, they truly thought that women did not have ADHD. They didn't have the hyperactivity part.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I had the hyperactivity part. Okay.
Yes, you do.
I would like run around the living room, just feeling my oats and like doing whatever I needed to do. And I couldn't stop.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I think I was just so hyperactive that it was undeniable.
Right. For sure.
Yeah. I think that, and I mean, I've had OCD tendencies. I've never been OCD because that was a trauma response. I have PTSD, anxiety, depression. Actually, not a lot of anxiety. That's been recently, but definitely depression. I mean, I joke that I'm an alphabet soup of disorders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you feel like, when you think about your own brain and you think about ADHD, how do you kind of rectify that with feeling like, no, that's just me, but you're saying that's, that question of normal. What is different about you than maybe me in your mind in terms of the hyperactivity part of it or the attention part of it?
I kind of wonder if, I don't fully know actually, but I kind of wonder if it is related to energy levels. Like people always called me, what did they call me, Michelle? They called me lazy. That I was lazy. And it's like, well, it's not lazy. I don't know how to describe it. It's not laziness. It's just that I don't have whatever it is in the brain that like forces you out of bed. Like that dopamine kick that just like, we're going to start the day and we're going to do it. And I don't have that.
Interesting. And so like part of what you're talking about is like executive functioning, which is those things that our brain wants, needs us to do certain things, right? And that we have to get up and go and all of that. And that's very classic, defined with neurodivergent people is that executive functioning of I'm going to get up and I'm going to go and I'm going to go do this and then I'm going to do this next thing is actually like not working in the same way that other people's brains might be.
And you actually have thoughts in your brain of like, I'm going to go and do this and then do that?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, well, I can tell you.
And also to an extent, sometimes that it's hard, right? I mean, because it's like, oh, I have to get up, I have to go do, like, even if my body doesn't feel like doing it sometimes or whatever, like I'm always on that track though of like, what's the next thing?
See, for me, I can't even think in my head, if that makes sense. Like I mean, I can, but if I'm trying to plan something out, I get distracted in my own head.
Right.
So I'll be like if I try to think about something, I can't, I'll think about maybe one step and I'll get to that second step and I just can't figure out the next one in my head. So I just keep repeating the same step over and over and over again.
Right.
And I'm trying to it's like I'm trying to move on to the next one, but like I just can't maintain the focus.
Right.
So I end up having to physically talk it out to myself, or I have to write it down, or I have to I can't just do it in my brain.
Okay. So it's not something that you're going to keep in your brain.
Oh, no.
No. So you've had to develop a lot of strategies then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So what has this left you with then? Or might this have left you with? Like, as a kid, I remember just getting you ready for carpool, for example, was like the most giant nightmare because, for me,
Yeah.
because I am that person of, okay, I had my shoes out, I had my backpack out, I had my, and who knows?
I want to be that person. Like,
I know.
badly.
Well, because the world has asked you to want to be that person.
Like I feel
too.
like I would be just such a happier person if I just was that. If I
Right.
just like could have my shoes laid out and I could have my bag and everything and not like leave my bag in the kitchen because I accidentally forgot that something was on over in the kitchen. And then that would be fantastic.
Yes. And I know that dichotomy.
It's like my dream.
I know. But it really is a dream partly because the world wants you to have that dream.
Is it? Okay. I hadn't thought about that way.
I think a little bit.
No, yeah. I mean, I think it's what's aesthetically appeasing.
Right. Like the fact that you would have to have 2 matching shoes. Who says?
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's some things that we just assume in life, that you have to start your day at 8 or you have to start your day at 7 or that, right? We've talked a lot about this, like evolutionarily, like I was the one who was probably going to make sure everybody got fed and you were going to make sure that
the tiger didn't come
and
kill us all.
Right. And you're like hyper aware of that. So I think there is something to that.
Yeah.
But it's made you to feel, I think, that somehow who you are at your core at certain points in your life was not enough or not right. And that I want to just kind of dive into just a little bit. So thinking about like little Rosey and now you go to school and what was that like for you?
It's sort of like my first memory of like being around other kids. And we were, wherever it was, like there was like this kind of outdoor above ground pool that you would like put your feet in a bucket of water. Well, okay, so you'd walk from the door to through the grass. They'd make you put your feet in this like pink bucket of water. It's a pink bucket.
Oh, wow.
And then you would wipe your feet off so there's no grass going into the pool. You climb up the stairs and then you get into this big giant pool.
Okay.
And I just remember like being teased and tortured because I would get to the water of the pink water bucket and it was so warm and it was so lovely.
You just wanted to like, stay in that pink bucket.
I did.
Move, Megan, move.
Yeah, because everybody wanted to get into the pool. And I was just like, oh, I'm so happy right here. Why do I have to get into the pit? Because you get in the pool.
And no one thought, let's let her go last.
Right.
They were like, oh, you're by order by height or something. Or whatever.
By middle. Oh, I think it was by name.
So you're in the middle.
I'm in the middle. So I'm like,
it's like,
yeah. And so they were just always like so mean about it. And I just, because like I didn't want to get in the water because it was so cold.
So cold.
It was just
and
like,
you were tiny then. You were a little tiny.
And I have really, really thin skin. So like it would,
it was cold.
It was freezing. Yeah. So it was just really hard going to school.
Yeah.
Emotionally. The other thing is that they would always set expectations verbally. And so I've learned over the years that if you tell me something verbally, I will not remember it. Like I don't retain it. I have to physically see it and then physically write it. But I have to have it in front of me or something to return back to. And I have to look at it multiple times. I can't just like hear it once. Like, Brian and I had this thing, my husband, Brian, he is very military auditory guy. And so he'll tell me something once and think that I've remembered it. And I've had to explain to him over the years. I'm like, no, you told it to me once. I don't remember it.
Oh.
And I also have apparently short-term memory loss. So my short-term memory, so to add everything else to it, my short-term memory is not great. So if you tell me something in the beginning, like it takes me multiple times before I'll actually retain it. But then once I retain it, I will remember it.
Interesting. And so and I always find with you, you're like a lockbox. Once you know it, it's really in there for sure. And I can imagine this impacts you in so many facets of your life. Obviously, the school life we'll get into more as we go along. But I do feel like there's just, it impacts friendships, it impacts relationships, right? Because if you don't remember what a friend told you, or that they needed something and then you didn't, especially when you're in your teen years, I mean, you're going to lose everybody.
Oh, and like especially during middle school, and the girls wanted to write notes to each other. And I just like, Oh my God, that was like the worst thing ever. Like I couldn't sit down long enough to write a note.
Too bad social media was not in your life then, because I think it would have been a lot easier for you in some ways, maybe.
No, you know what? Social media is equally as overwhelming.
Interesting.
There's just so much it's actually worse. There's so much just being thrown up in my face all the time.
That it just overwhelms.
It's completely overwhelming.
Interesting.
It's like, I know we want to have some social media for this podcast, but it's also like, I don't know how I can handle that.
Right.
You know?
Right. And we've really come to this idea too that, we're going to lean into your brain on this. We're going to lean into what you can do and create a world where it's acceptable to be who you are. So if we don't respond right away, then that's just what's going to happen, because it's not what you can do.
It's like, I want to be able to post stuff and interact, but like the way I interact might not be the way people are used to, and it's not going to be on time. It's not going to be like within the same, like I'll be able to get back to it like maybe, once a week or something, and then I'll look at it, but like it's not going to be in any frame. And the worst thing is that when I was in middle school, I didn't know how I didn't understand that wasn't okay, and that was something within me that I just didn't have. And so I would always lie, and I'd say, oh, I'm just writing you a really long message. And it's taking me forever because I didn't know.
Right.
And then
you don't want to hurt people's feelings.
Yeah.
So then you learn to lie.
And then they would get so mad at me. They're like, oh yeah, you're going to write some really long message back to me. And then they were so mean.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I don't want to fucking write a goddamn message.
I didn't like doing it either, but partly it's just that writing was really hard for me, and like physically writing was difficult. And so it was painful. And for me, it was difficult. Okay. So in thinking about this, I think you've come up with so many ways to cope around this. And, I was always saying, Rosey, when you think about your brain, what do you think about? And your like immediate thing was like puzzles, and that's such a huge coping mechanism for you, puzzles. And I think also, your writing seems like a really big piece of how you kind of get things out when you're in that mood. And I also think that you've got some creativity, some artistic pieces that you do to help you through all of this. And I think one of the things I want to be able to talk to you about is some of those coping strategies that you might have as well. And so when you're thinking about going back to those stickers, what was it about those stickers that was helping you at that moment? Not that was always creative, right? But what was that strategy, and what might that be in your adult life now something similar that you might do now?
I think it was a lot of color, but then also I liked that they were quiet. So
say more about that.
The stickers don't have emotion. They don't have thoughts, and they don't have thing like it's very two-dimensional. Like whatever it looks like, that's what it is. And you can look at it and you can create it more, and you can say, oh, I can kind of glean from like, oh, the way that their eye is twinkling, are they happy or are they sad? But like they weren't going to talk back to me and say like, oh yeah, my eye is twinkling, but I'm really pissed at you. It was so understandable. And it was like, okay, I could just kind of quiet down and sort of zen out, because I didn't have to worry about there being two opposing facts going on.
Interesting. So it was almost meditative.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And nowadays, I don't see you with stickers in the same way.
No, I mean, I think I changed it up a little bit. I mean, when I was in... years back, I was doing a lot of drawing, like the adult coloring books. I did that for a while. I think diamond art has been a good one. Puzzles, painting. I've started painting my nails and like learning how to do that. So it's like I'm still getting all these like fun colors and this vibrancy, but it has nothing to do with anybody else other than me and whatever story I want to tell. But yeah, I think just like not having to deal with the the two-faced of humanity sometimes is what helps me.
To get away from that, to kind of detox from that, or to just have, like you said, quiet.
Yeah, to kind of recharge.
Yeah.
And I guess like the stickers, they didn't require me to be anything other than who I was.
Yeah.
They didn't mind me looking at them for hours. If I stared at somebody for hours, they thought that was weird. You know?
Yeah. Like, why are you staring at me, Rosey?
We talked about mom, and like I could not. I loved the fact that she used to wear dangly earrings.
Oh.
I loved being able to just like jingle jangle them with my finger,
You
and it
still do.
I still do. It drives her crazy. But like, there's something just so amazing about it, and but I can't do that with other people.
Right.
And so like I feel like, you know, even with the stickers, like I would trace them with my finger and I'd feel them, and I would like see like all the different, that's why they kind of had every single sense involved with them. Because some were even like had texture, so you could like scrape them a little bit and hear the sounds. And then you could smell some of them because they smell like chocolate. That's amazing.
That's amazing.
And so I think it was just, stickers, my stuffed animals, my pets, you know, they don't require me to be anything other than who I am.
Yeah.
They don't ask, they just want me to be there. And they just say, you know what? I love you just the way you are.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always happen with humans.
Yeah.
And it's sad because, like, wouldn't the world be amazing if it was like that?
And so that's really the community, the world you want to build.
Yeah.
That compassionate community.
Yeah. Like, where if you're having a bad day, it's like, cool, you're having a bad day, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here. I'm not going to run away because you're having a bad day. I'm also not going to run away because you're having a good day. I'm going to celebrate your good days. You know, like, wherever you are, you're allowed to be there. I'm not going to hold on to it for you, but I will still be next to you.
Yeah. And I think like just seeing the tears coming down your face right now, it means so much to you.
Yeah. And
I know that, you know, even for myself, that is such a work in progress with you that, you know, I didn't understand. And I think for people who are loving somebody who is beautifully neurodivergent or beautifully themselves, however we want to say it. And it's hard because we are in such an ableist society where when we think somebody is functioning in a different way, that somehow that's not functioning.
Yeah.
Or it isn't enough. And it
even
needs to be supplemented in some way as opposed to just accepted for where it's at.
Like, even I think quote unquote normal people.
Yeah.
You know, just accepting who you are, because this whole idea of what's normal, well, I mean, that's going to depend on what it depends on the person. Yeah. What's normal for me is going to be totally different than what's normal for you. And so being able to accept the fact that you have your own normalities and I have mine.
Yeah.
And that they are different and they may clash at times, but it's not because I don't love and support you. It's because I just am different. And
Absolutely.
So it's not like an attack. I think that's the thing that's hard, is that it feels like my brain is somehow an attack on people.
Just the fact that you are who you are is an attack.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's interesting too to me is even the term, you know, divergent, it's saying that you are somehow diverging from something.
Yeah.
Right. And it was interesting. I just read a book called Normal Sucks, and it's such a good such a good book, so we'll put a link to it in this. But one of the things that I found interesting was that this idea of normal, they actually have the gentleman who did the book, wrote the book, you know, was looking up old articles and things, and they actually tried to classify, like, finding a normal typical person. And they did this entire scouting all over the US, and it was back, I don't remember when it was, but it was like 1900s or something, and early 1900s, and they tried to find this average person, and they finally found her. and then realized that even she wasn't quote unquote normal. There was something about her that was slightly off of all the averages that they had done. Height, weight, eye color, whatever it was. There was averaging of everything.
Wow.
And so when we talk about the idea of normal, it's really talking about average. And so in a way, who wants to be average? And so point. I think when we think about this, whether we call it neurodivergent or we call it Rosey's brain, I think it's just really fascinating to see how do we create a community where it's okay to be exactly who you are and, like you said, accepted for who you are. Mm-hmm. And I like also that you allow for this emotional space for people. You're saying, I'm going to be there with you. I'm not going to hold it for you, but I'm going to be there with you.
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful.
Thanks.
I'm so excited to keep digging into your brain as we go along.
As long as it's not painful physically. Do we have to actually crack it open and be like, oh, scoop it out a little?
I mean, no. We won't do that. We won't go that far. But I know it is asking a lot of you, so I appreciate you being here today.
Well, I'm glad that I can be here.
I love you.
I love you too.
Thanks for listening to our podcast, everybody. This podcast was hosted by
Megan Mayadusky
and Michelle Woodward, and it was edited by
Megan Mayadusky.
Oh. And we really appreciate everything that you guys are doing by listening to us.
If you liked it, maybe you might want to share it or give us a rating. That's going to really help us get our message out, and it's also just going to help Michelle and I because we are a 2-woman band.
Yes. We
making
need your
this
help.
all happening.
Absolutely.
And you can also reach us on rosiesbrain.com, which has lots of resources and links from the show. And we'll have show notes and whatnot there and all the crazy puzzles and words and sounds.
And just be ready because there will be some outtakes oftentimes at the end of podcasts. So make sure to follow us all the way till the end.
We hope you're well wherever you're at. And remember, stay compassionate.
Yeah, and I remember almost to the day when you started implementing that in your life because it fundamentally changed our relationship for me. And it changed, I think, hopefully for the better, the work that I was doing on myself of how I needed to be different, how I needed to be more compassionate. And I remember... I don't remember what we were talking about, but I do remember this day where I was really upset about something, as I'm like to do, and sometimes when you're really upset or you're really vocal, people want to kind of say okay, got it. Right. Mm-hmm. Which means shut up. Right. Or yeah. But, and means no, let's shift your focus or whatever. And I remember you had just been through some work you were doing. And you just said, you're really upset with me. You're really not happy with what I did. And you just vocalized what it was I was feeling. You understood it, and it was clear you understood it, but you weren't defensive. You weren't trying to change what I was thinking. You weren't also necessarily agreeing with it. You were just stating what it was. And I remember how it felt. And what it felt was being heard. And I think when people feel heard, we don't have to agree.
Yeah.
For it to feel very satisfying between both people. We can actually fundamentally disagree.
Yeah.
Walk away disagreeing about things or feeling differently about them and still feel good about the interaction. And so I love this idea of helping to build a community where, there are boundaries around the way we respond, but maybe not so many boundaries on what we're talking about, how we feel about things, right?
Yeah.
Our own feelings. And I think having a safe space for that is really, really important.
Well, it's interesting too, because there's this idea that there's only one truth, but the reality is that there are multiple truths based on how people view it. And so the best way you can actually show this is that if you take a piece of paper and you draw the number 6 and I put it in between the two of us and I ask you, Michelle, what number do you see? I see 6. What do you see?
9.
Yeah. Those are both the truth.
Yeah.
Yet it's the same piece of paper. And so that this idea that just because you see a 9 and I see a 6 doesn't mean that you're wrong.
Right.
It just means that this is how I see it. That's how you see it.
Right. And
they can both be accurate at the same time. Yeah. There is no such thing as the singular truth.
Because, and the way that, I see the sticker book and the way you see the sticker book, or what you need it for and what I would need it for, might be different, even though it's the same sticker book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.